Well, how are you?
Ooh, I'm here.
Good news.
I just. Very charming way to spend time.
But I keep it so I can toggle back and forth.
Check, check. Waiver cases, we won.
You must be feeling.
No excessive end zone celebration. So, hi, we won on the annexation.
Shh, it's picking this up.
That's okay, it's a fact. Yeah. So, that's good. Okay. Now, we're waiting for Skip. Dee won't be here. Do we have a quorum right now?
Three.
We have a quorum? Okay.
So, he'll be here today, probably, hopefully.
Okay. But
Is Dee's father okay?
he's on his deathbed. Yeah.
It is like 97.
He loves life. He loves every minute of it. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Hi. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna turn my phone off. Well, you tell me when you're ready to go. Skip is coming tonight, right?
He's virtual, so we can
he's
start.
Virtual. Good. Okay, we'll get to see him virtually then. Well, it's 5:30 p.m. and I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We were just having some preliminary discussion, and just so you don't feel out of the loop, in terms of the annexation cases, the judge has decided in favor of the residents of 1A and 1B that they shall not be annexed. I haven't read the entire opinion, but just so that you're informed and you don't feel out of the loop of what we were discussing, here. It impacts so many residents in the county and the business of the county. And so we're happy about the decision, and we're sharing that with you. So with that being said, we're ready to begin. We have a quorum, and if I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Okay. I will go ahead and call the roll. Pamela Davidson,
I am present.
Guy Loftman,
Here.
Dee Owens,
She won't be here.
Margaret Clements,
Here?
Skip Daly. He's on yet. Okay, he'll be joining virtually. Well, we currently have 3 members in person and a
There he-
quorum. Oh,
there he is.
here.
Skip Daly is
Okay.
here. He has to, you have to show your face when you make a vote or say present, Skip. It's a little strange, but it's government.
Skip, you should be able to unmute yourself at this point.
Are you here, Skip?
Thumbs up.
I'm here, but
Okay,
this
I'll go ahead and mark you as present.
program isn't.
Okay,
There we go.
thank you. Oh, there you are. We can see you now. Okay, could you introduce the evidence?
Sure, I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence. The Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended. The Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended. The Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended. The Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended. And the case is advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I would like to move that we accept and approve the evidence at tonight's meeting that you've just enumerated.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the introduction of evidence. A vote yes is a vote to approve. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes?
Skip Daly,
Yes. However, this camera is not operating correctly.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Okay, motion is certainly approved, 3-0, but also Skip Daly did vote, but we won't count it for,
Well, he's here now. We can
How about
see his
now?
video.
okay, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda. We do not have any modifications to tonight's agenda as posted. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Margaret Clements?
Yes?
Skip Daly?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Now, there are 2 sets of minutes that were included on the agenda. If you've had a chance to review them and you have no objections to them, you could either approve them separately or discuss them separately or together.
Let me, I pushed the wrong button. I move that we approve the minutes of both the May 1st and 2024 and June 5th, 2024 meetings.
And I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve both the May 1st and June 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. A vote yes is a vote to approve both sets of meeting minutes. Skip Daly?
Retaining my objections and my motion, which has not been followed through on 13 months ago, I vote present.
Okay. Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Margaret Clements?
Yes?
Okay, motion is approved 3-0.
Okay. Is there any administrative business? There is none on the agenda. So we move into the first item under old business, which is VAR-24-30. And this is the Ryder Eco Area 1 on a 12% slope variance to Chapter 825 concerning 2 74.81 plus or minus acre parcels in Salt Creek Township, Section 26 and 27 at East Gilmore Ridge Road. And Ms. Griselius, if you would kindly review that case with us, I'd be grateful.
Yes, absolutely. So this petition was originally heard on July 22nd. This was continued by the board, allow the petitioner to reevaluate or revise their request. As of Monday, we have received an updated plot plan from the petitioner and their representative, their surveyor with Smith Design Group. On the screen, I have a second version of this image, which will be a little more clear, but they have revised their plot plan. I'm going to move to the next one that removes the contours from the image. A little bit clearer to see. So in the bright green color on the screen is a revised proposed home footprint. The original proposed home footprint was an approximate 5,000 square feet. The revised version now is 2,500 square feet. They have stated that the revised total disturbance area is now 10,000 square feet from the original 10 to 15,000 square feet. They did state that they are going to relocate the proposed septic field. That's what's shown. I do not have confirmation whether that slightly revised location of the septic field is approved and okay by the health department. But they have moved it into area that appears to be under 12%. So as long as that septic field location is okay with the health department, that would be a by right location for the septic field. They are showing the overhead power line on the updated plot plan of 50 feet. They are showing that as an easement. Whether it's an official easement, I'm unsure, but it is located on the property, and they are showing that that illustration helps you kind of understand the plot plan a little bit more. And I believe the petitioners are here and online. Staff still stands by, we have reevaluated the plot plan, and we do still stand by the original recommendation of denial.
Is that all, Ms. Crecelius?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Do members of the BZA have questions for staff?
My question is, if they've downsized it by 50% and changed it, what's the support for denial on staff recommendation? Can you explain it to us?
Yeah. It's that criteria C, which is the practical difficulties. Ultimately, we are not able to find or see a way around the fact that they do have adequate area of 12% slope and under that they could build on. That area would be a by right area for development, and they're still proposing a footprint that is outside of 12%.
How much outside of the 12% is this new proposed structure? Because it's always a percentage of something. What would you guess? Or no?
So it looks like the structure itself, probably 50% of it is in areas that are beyond that 12% slope.
So substantial,
Yes.
50%. Thank you for that.
Yeah, let me make sure. I think I understand the drawing, and I appreciate it. There's a mark here that says 12%, and it goes around the south east corner of the house. But beyond that, and going out to the western tip, all of that is in the 12 to 15% slope area. Is that?
Yes.
Have I got it?
Yes, you're
Okay.
correct.
And I know the view is very important, and this gives them the view they want. But you're saying that they could move it, and I know that you're not in the business of telling people where you can move it, but if they moved it to the southeast, so that the north west corner was right on that 12%, I don't see where they could, by 1 1/4 fingernails, I don't see where I don't see where it would fit. Do you think it?
On 72 acres.
So this property was for sale for quite a bit of time. A total of 74 acres, and every call we've ever received, we've always advised them that there is basically one buildable area, and it is within the watershed with those protections.
Right. If there are another 70 acres that aren't on this little plat, but those aren't usable. Those aren't buildable areas, acres. Right.
The two parcels are a total of 74 acres. So
Yeah.
we are only looking at an area that's maybe 2 acres, maybe in
Right.
total,
And-
just the whole view that we're looking at.
Correct. And the rest of the other 70 acres or 72 acres don't have a buildable location. Is that right?
Correct.
Right. So if they're going to build on this, it's got to be in this area. And if they're going to build and avoid the 12%, they need to take that and move it. Well, for one thing, they'd had to get rid of if they put it on the existing driveway and right up against the easement, it might fit in. Is that?
Sure.
is that-
And the footprint that they're showing is long, skinny, rectangular.
Right.
If you were to say not make it such a long shape, you could absolutely make 2,500 square feet fit on 12% there.
Right. Yeah.
And you've just told us that whenever any prospective purchasers have contacted your department about the potential purchase of this land, which was on the market, you said, for quite a while, you've always told them there's one buildable spot. Did these owners contact you about that, or do you have any way of knowing if that happened?
My memory is not always great, but if I'm correct, I believe the property owners purchased this property beforehand. Memory's not always great. They did apply for a septic permit really early on with a couple of home locations. So we did reach out and have communication with them fairly early, explaining that, subdividing would be difficult and that the buildable area is difficult. And then they took our advice and got hold of a surveyor and worked with a professional.
Good to know.
Okay, and I want to ensure, does Mr. Daly have any questions for staff? So if not, then we'll give the petitioner, Mr. and Mrs. Ryder, or their representative, 15 minutes to discuss your case and make your case known to us. If you'd kindly come to the podium and sign in, then I'd swear you in, or if you're online, please make yourself known.
Hello, this is Jennifer Ryder. I am online. Can you hear me okay?
Would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. So you'll have 15 minutes to discuss this with us.
Thank you very much. I apologize for not being there in person this time. It was our back to school day here today. But thank you for giving, and Steve's out of state training today as well. So, but he's also online separate from me. I do have an updated presentation and proposal, and did a great job kind of going through most of it. So I know you already understand the changes that have been made, but I do have a few visuals that might be helpful. This first one just kind of shows the lake overall, and for those who don't know exactly where we're talking about at a high level view, that blue star in the top right is the area that we're talking about. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll zoom down in a little bit. And this highlighted yellow area shows the total 74 plus acres. And as y'all were just discussing, it is very slopey, mostly unbuildable. Steve and I did know that it would be challenging prior to the purchase, but we did believe, we did some work with septic to try to make sure we could build a house on it. But we were not aware of this specific small space as being the buildable space, unfortunately. But that's neither here nor there at this point. The yellow dot on this slide is where we hope to build. The red dot is more what Ann was talking about, kind of within that 12% line. And then I've also kind of highlighted the neighboring properties on either side. So these are both parcels owned by one of our neighbors, and they kind of butt up against the property and directly across East Gilmore Ridge Road. We can go to the next slide, and this is that 12% slope line that Ann mentioned, shows the original footprint that we had requested, but the next slide will show kind of detail what our difficulties are with the proposed build site. So our main concern is the trees and the environment. We're looking at trying to relocate to this area to be surrounded by nature, to nurture nature. So obviously it kind of hurts me to think we're gonna come take down a bunch of trees to build a house. I'm not really comfortable with that. And in addition to that, obviously it would create additional costs. When we bought the land, we did see this already disturbed, cleared area. We didn't have the full surveying done to know that it went up to 15% slope in that area, but it would reduce costs significantly for us if we don't have to excavate and clear a new space. And then there are those power lines and easements. So there's two sets of power lines that run over the property. One set is high tension power lines that run over the lake, and the other set are residential lines that feed the neighbors across the road. And then the road easement. So the current road's pretty narrow. It gets traffic from neighbors and then folks going down to the lake in that area. So I do think it's possible for this road to be expanded in the future. It's maybe a lane and a half with ditches on either side at the moment, and it lies beyond a 2-mile stretch of gravel road in Brown County. So this is a pretty small rural road at the moment. You can go to the next slide. And the images here, I used kind of the yellow dots previously to try to be consistent. I've got the cleared area circled on the left where we would like to build versus encroaching upon the driveway and the treed area. And it's not just the house. I mean, we'd have to create some sort of entrance and opening and yard to the house. So again, we'd prefer to use this cleared area to avoid the trees. And then the shaded white area shows the power lines that run directly overhead, the area that's inside of that existing gravel driveway. And I have an arrow pointing at the road. You can just see a tiny little piece of the road, but that also is right there. I think we can go to the next slide from here. Oh, go back one, please. Oh, this is, you had gone for, you're right, you were in the right place, sorry about that. Just a little delay on my side. So Ann already shared this view, so I don't think I need to go through it too much. But in response to the questions and the feedback in the last meeting, we kind of went back to the drawing board. So I think Lauren with Lauren Wood Builders is in the room, and Todd Borgman with Smith Design tried to help us kind of reconfigure this to make it less imposing, kind of beyond that 12% slope line. So we're looking now at a very narrow home, looking at not only reducing the square footage by half, but rotating it, pulling it back into that 12% area, and looking to do some other design features to help mitigate any other excavation or disturbance on that land. I don't think there's anything else on this slide that you haven't already talked about. So the advantages of our proposal includes the protection of trees, avoiding those power lines for us, personally, given the size, the scale of them, preserving the natural beauty of the area in addition to not taking down all those trees. That's not just for our benefit or even the benefit of the environment, is also part of the landscape as you drive into that area. This is more financially feasible given that it's already cleared and disturbed. It avoids the road and adjacent property easements, and we believe it takes future needs into consideration. So this image on the right is a photo that I took out of the property prior to the last meeting, and this is pointing directly at the lake. So it was on one of the first slides, but it's some 4 football fields off in the distance, but that is the cleared area. This is actually the far end of it, so the house would actually be sitting behind this, this particular photograph. So just a few visuals to hopefully help. If we can go forward one slide from here. So we understand if we were able to get variance, that we would have to have erosion control put in place. I have a variety of methods listed here, but I know that that would be defined by the engineering team and the planning department. So we're prepared to do all that's necessary there. We're looking at installing a retaining wall to help shore this up because there is quite a large cleared area at this time. And looking at incorporating beams and pillars into the house design. So we've seen a lot of houses out there built in slopey areas, and we've noticed a lot of them are using these pillar designs to, one, just get the house built, but also it minimizes excavation. And so we'd also like to use smaller machinery, base construction where possible. I know Lauren and his team have a good reputation in the area for building smartly and efficiently, so we don't have cleared land sitting there for an extended period of time. And then we have vegetation preservation. So we had talked about this a little bit in the last meeting. Steve and I are part of a couple of organizations each dedicated to the environment and to nature. So it's part of our vision with this land initially to re-tree and work with forestry to improve both parcels and then also plant native vegetation, including flowers for pollinators. So we wanted to do that anyway, but also as part of stabilizing the soil following any construction. And the last slide, we don't have to click on the link, but y'all are welcome to on your own, or we can do it here if you want. But this is just another view. It kind of flies overhead. We're starting kind of on the neighbor's lot there. You start to see the start of the gravel driveway, but it's just an overhead view of the trees and the power lines. But yeah, just to recap, our hope is the reduced footprint and the ability to minimize tree removal and land disturbance, and obviously having a certified site plan in place will address the concerns that were raised in the last meeting. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any other members in your group who intend to speak in your 15-minute time allotment? So yes, Mr. Wood, would you kindly come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in, and then we'll have questions for both.
And staff, do you have this presentation? Has she sent it to you?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't sign this earlier. I was looking for the form.
That's okay. It's more helpful for the staff who do the transcripts to have the sign in order anyway.
Okay.
So would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, thank you guys for the work that you do. For what it's worth, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to say a couple things. I have walked this lot extensively. I don't have a contract to build with them. I've been consulting with them in the early stages. I talked to them right after they bought the land. It was after they purchased the land, before they understood the slope restrictions to the extent that that matters. They had done what they thought was due diligence with the septic approvals and what have you. So I just want to speak to two things. First, the practical difficulty. It's hard to tell from the pictures what a relatively small portion of the overall 70-some acres that is actually considered the buildable area. And, you know, the fact that that power line easement and the existing driveway encroach on that pretty significantly. Of course, there's some way that you could squeeze and fit a house onto a piece of property, 2,500 square feet in surface area, but to put one that meets their needs programmatically, also has ingress and egress as far as the driveway and site planning, I think it's a significant stretch. You know, at the last meeting, someone had mentioned the possibility of moving those lines. Those lines come down and then actually cross the lake, and it's not a possibility of moving those power lines. So, you know, the practical difficulty, I think, is really significant here. I think if it's constrained to that 12% slope, I think that it's going to be very challenging for them to meet their needs. You know, and then I think the second thing I want to speak to is just the spirit of the rules and regulations around those slope restrictions. As I understand them, the reason for having a 12% slope restriction for soil disturbance in the environmental overlay there is to minimize disturbance of that high slope area so that you're minimizing the amount of erosion and sediment down into the watershed, protecting our water. The reality is that that land was all logged prior to these folks buying it. That all that area in the 15% slope that's being requested, and now they've pulled back to just a small portion of that. That's all, as you saw in the pictures, cleared, and there's logs laying down. It's been disrupted. It hasn't been stabilized beyond just the weeds that have grown up there. So the damage has been done to the extent that clearing in that area is going to create erosion. When you pull a building permit, when you apply for a building permit now in the county, you have to go through some stormwater regulations, create an erosion control plan, and do some things, by the books and rules here that really help to enforce what the contractor does on that land. And in allowing construction on that little piece of property, I think you're ensuring that the area that does get built on is going to be treated by today's standards in terms of stabilizing that soil, in terms of managing the stormwater through the course of construction, and then, permanently stabilizing the ground beyond that. So from my perspective, when I look at that area that's already been cleared, I think that allowing a little bit of construction encroaching into that 15% slope is only going to improve the current circumstances where there's just disturbed soil everywhere. So those are my two comments. I appreciate your all's time.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Before we move on, are there other speakers in the group who would like to speak online or elsewhere?
I hope so, but I'm not sure.
I mean, for the petitioner.
Yeah, I don't know. I just came here in support of this. I'm not sure if they have others to speak to
I
it.
see. Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You first said power line easements, then you said the power lines that are constructed, run, and cross the lake.
Yeah.
Is it lines or easement?
The easement is the restrictions or the area on which the power company has permanent, approval to access and do work, and you're not allowed to build on it. So that easement is really significant. I think there was a question at the previous hearing that maybe there was a possibility of moving those power lines, thereby moving the easements. And because of the significance of this power line, it's not just a single feeder line accessing someone's house. It's a high tension. The main one that has that 50-foot easement is a high tension line that goes down and then physically goes right over Lake Monroe. So it's a pretty significant electric infrastructure there that's not really feasible to move.
And I think I heard the petitioner say that there are other houses built out there on slope that have safety, construction, engineering
I think in general,
attributes.
I can't speak to those specific homes. There are a lot of homes in the area that were built before the current slope restrictions exist. There are homes that have been built since that have some specific foundation details and construction approaches that help minimize the impact of that excavation and construction work in that space, using piers, for instance, as opposed to a continuous poured or laid block foundation is one way to do that rather than, to excavate fully that foundation. But her point is that there are, not just in Monroe County, but across the country, ways that, you can be really intentional around the design and engineering of the foundation and the excavation approach so as to stabilize the soil before, during, and after construction.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Loftman, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Could we see the slide that shows the
Drawing?
the new proposal?
The drawing? Yeah.
This one, yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. I want to see if I understand you correctly. You're saying you could, if you just look at that sort of wide rectangle there, that's all in 12%, you're saying, yeah, you could build a rectangular, a squarish house within that, but it would have a lot of problems in terms of making it meet their needs, in terms of making it have something you could get into and out of, and without getting too close to the power lines.
All those things, yes, sir.
Yeah, that it might not be impossible, but it's going to be a real challenge. Is a fair summary of your statement?
I think that's a fair summary, and I would go a step further to say that I think that if construction isn't allowed within that 12% area, it's just hard for me to see, just even as an advisor, like how to make that whole program, including, the driveway, the approach, landscaping work. And so, yeah, I think I understand the reasons for the slope restrictions, but in this case, especially given the overall size of the property relative to the very small little area that's under that 12%, it just seems like this approach is what it's going to take to make it feasible.
Well, one of the issues that I'm finding is the discussion is just about practical difficulties, and yet there are 3 standards that have to be met. And one has to do with the overall health and safety of our community. And the reason we have the 12% slope restriction, as you know, is for protection of the watershed. And if, I'm thinking of the homeowners or the potential homeowners and land builders who had thought about that site themselves and were refused or failed to build on it because of the restrictions, And I don't, as of this moment, I don't see how the standard for the approval, including any conditions or commitments deemed appropriate, will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community because of the stability of the natural or scenic area and of the quality of our water. I don't see how that's being addressed except for just normal erosion control measures, which in our watershed are, we have higher considerations and many, many, many more people involved who would like to build on 12% slopes, and that is a problem for our water supply,
I understand your question, and that was what I was trying to speak to with respect to the current soil disturbance. I mean, currently, all of that area that you saw in her pictures has been cut, logged, and traveled. The soil has been heavily disturbed. And so, as I said, I think that by coming in, stabilizing that soil, containing that, doing some hardscaping, landscaping, and Mrs. Ryder spoke to that a little bit. I think that's the piece that, goes beyond the current circumstances and creates a condition where the soil has been stabilized, minimizing further erosion into the watershed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Loftman.
Let me follow up.
Yes.
So what sorts of things would be useful to further stabilize? You mentioned pier construction, for instance. So the footprint minimizes the intrusion into the soil. What other kinds of things would
the footprint minimizes intrusion? She mentioned building retaining walls to physically retain soil from further degradation and erosion towards the lake, and then of course doing planting, hardscaping and planting largely that can help grading initially, because right now there's just lumps of soil and disturbed ground everywhere. So grading that out, containing it, stabilizing the soil via plantings and hardscapings is the typical approach. And that in that site plan, grading plan, stormwater management plan, and landscaping plan is all submitted through the permitting process for construction. So the county gets opportunity to weigh in on that and ensure that, further opportunity beyond today, if you guys were to approve this, to review those and make requests as far as how to help further stabilize that site. Whereas if the construction is somehow squeezed in around where that driveway is, I don't know that there are things that they can do beyond the extremes of the construction area to ask them to go back and stabilize pre-existing conditions.
And you had to go in with dirt movers to stabilize it?
I think you could be pretty minimal with what you come in with. I mean, you don't necessarily need to bring in a bulldozer. I think you could go in by hand and remove, cut up and remove some of the tree stumps and other things. And then, I think maybe a skid steer, a small, mini excavator to grade out and stabilize the soil. Certainly doesn't have to be large earth moving equipment.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any further questions? Okay, and Mr. Daly, do you have any questions? If so, raise your hand or hide yourself.
I'm good at this point with questions. I do have some comments that I'd like to make after testimony is finished.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. So we'll hear now from members of the community who are in favor and opposed to the petition. And if there are members of the community who are opposed to the petition, then you'll have a 5-minute rebuttal period. Okay, so are there members of thank you, Mr. Wood. Yes,
Sure.
You may have a seat. Are there members of the community who are in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium, raise your virtual hand, or how do they, if they're calling in, let us know? So,
I don't see that anyone is on by phone.
okay, so if you're on line, please raise your virtual hand, or if you're in the room, please come to the podium. If you are opposed to this petition, please do the same thing. Come to the podium so that you would have 3 minutes to address us, or raise your virtual hand so that you could be recognized to speak. Seeing none, we don't have a rebuttal period. So we return now to members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion. So,
Mr. Daly seemed to have.
yes, we'll turn to Mr. Daly. In the meantime, oh, yes.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. This switch, I don't know when it happened from Zoom to Teams, is horrible.
I agree. There you are.
All right. But that's a later discussion. I would like to share with my fellow board members that not only do I believe that all of the conditions were met at the last meeting, but at this point in time, what we've seen in this presentation, this was probably one of the presentations that we've ever had before us. And the responsibility that I'm seeing from the petitioner is exactly what I'm looking for. From what I've seen and read and heard over the course of last meeting and of this meeting, that the wishes of the petitioner are actually a net gain for the environment. And I want that message to ring loudly to my colleagues. I am seeing and hearing that they are going to leave this watershed area in a better place through what they are looking at building. Never mind the fact that to put this in a different location would be more disruptive. So I believe they're improving the current status of the environment in the watershed. And if they were to put this in this one little area that that is impractical for a number of reasons, that would have additional challenges to the environment. So if we're looking at this from a sense of steward of our natural preserve, I don't see how we cannot vote in favor of this. In terms of the practical difficulties, which was the only thing that was brought forward in last meeting's minutes as a concern from the planning staff. So this absolutely gets my seal of approval. So there's that.
Thank you, Mr. Daly.
Can you go back to the slide that shows the red circle and the yellow circle with the power lines right here? I have a great deal of concern about those power lines because the property there, you can see clearly the clump of trees that would be removed. That's very clear from this. We've heard from Mr. Wood that the area, the yellow area is, lumpy and rough and has never been restored or remediated, which of course always happens with loggers. That makes a lot of sense in that sense. And, to have a view of the lake at all, I'm kind of amazed that they downsized the recommendation from 5,000 to 2,500. That's a huge reduction to try to comply with a lot of the things we've asked of them. So I can certainly understand Skip's attitude about this.
I voted against the earlier proposal, but the presentations today are leading me to reconsider. And I think the thing that it's under design standard variance approval A1, which Ms. Clements referred to, it would not impair the stability of a natural or scenic area. The fact that this has been heavily logged is heavily disturbed and is right now unstable, and it can be stabilized by this process, joined with the fact that they have bent over backwards to go from the dream house to the minimum house, which I do appreciate people working with us to find something that comes as close as it
Could
can
you
to
speak
strict
into the
compliance.
microphone? Sorry.
They have made a change that comes as close as is practical to the minimum intrusion beyond the 12% slope area. So I will move to approve variation 24-30 Ryder Eco Area, Area 1, 12% slope variance from Chapter 825 on the grounds that the 812.6 standards A1, it would not impair the stability of a natural or scenic area beyond the condition it is in now. In fact, it would stabilize an area, a natural area, from the condition it's in now. And it certainly isn't going to be affect the value of any adjacent property except to improve it because the neighborhood is upgraded. And this would be the minimum. What I'm looking at is what conditions we can put on it. And what I'm thinking is that and what's enforceable and who's going to enforce it, it would go through the building department. I assume that the lightest equipment practically available, ideally shovels. But I know that's not going to take care of the whole job. And the smallest land disturbance that is practical be conditions of the approval. So that's my motion.
I have just a question. Are those conditions possible, manageable, doable, enforceable, reasonable? We all know Mr. Wood has a great reputation. He does quality work. We all know that. So he's spent a lot of time assessing. So he has a plan. Obviously, no, you don't have the job. I heard that. Yes, I got that. So are those conditions within the motion possible?
When we receive a building permit application for a home, we do not at that point know the type of construction equipment that will be in use for that, building or structure. So the things that we can check prior to issuing the permit are things like erosion control standards such as silt fence or other, they can do blankets of seed so that as soon as the soil is disturbed, they can immediately stabilize the area. So you could implement or condition additional erosion control measures. I think that making sure that the building footprint does not exceed encroachment outside of what has been proposed tonight is important. That's sort of not necessarily a condition because it's been presented to you all and you're voting in that sense. So they can't just go back to the 5,000 square foot proposal. What you're voting on today is that square footage that's specifically shown in the PowerPoint and in the presentation with that limited footprint in the 13 to 15% slope. So I think that making sure the full construction envelope is within the 15% slope, additional erosion control measures, those are things that we can check at the building permit stage. You could ask the petitioner's representative, or if they're, going to be in contract with Mr. Wood, if, they want to commit to certain limitation of construction equipment, but that's certainly more difficult for us to enforce.
Okay.
And also staff still feels that the home could be resited on the property
Right. I understand.
without encroaching on the slope restriction.
Right. And
Yeah.
I understand that that's staff's position, and I also heard Mr. Woods very clearly say that would be impractical to do that.
Okay. Okay.
So do you want to amend your motion at all?
Well, can we ask Ms. Ryder whether she's willing to make a commitment to those sorts of things that would be of record?
I don't think, first of all, I don't think it's our role to bind her to a builder.
No, I'm not saying to a builder at all. I'm saying to minimal land disturbance and as something that she commits to.
But, we can reiterate it, but Jackie said when they come in at the builder permit stage, that's when that happens.
I'm not necessarily talking about how it gets enforced.
Okay.
I am talking about knowing that somebody has said, yes, that's something I'm willing to do, and I'm
Okay.
making a commitment. I might not be able to enforce it, but at least I'd like to know it's there.
Okay.
Yes, and I would speak for Steve and myself in confirming everything that we described and everything in particular on that slide in terms of mitigation strategies. Those are going to be top of mind throughout. So we want to slow the flow of water through the space throughout the process and make sure Lauren did a great job articulating our intentions, not just during the construction process and minimizing the impact, but post-construction, leaving the area in a better place than we found it. So, and then beyond that, in the years to come, I think even more so.
And I see that Mr. Daly has his hand raised. So if you, Mr. Daly.
Are you guys talking to me? The audio is absolutely horrible, so I can't hear very much of what's going on. Are you asking for me to speak?
Yes, your hand is raised. At least that's how it appears here.
I do have a comment. I could hear part of Mr. Loughnan's request for putting conditions, and I don't know that any one of the board members are currently experts enough on that type of machinery in order to get into those technicalities and the ability of the county to be able to monitor that process. I think their testimony that they've provided here is legal testimony, and they've committed in that testimony to act with the level of responsibility that I think any one of us could ever imagine would be important for this part of our county. So I don't know that any conditions beyond what they've testified to today is even relevant.
Okay.
Let me amend it to say, and based on what Jackie said, that maximum erosion protection would be in place at all stages of the construction. Is that more practical? Okay, that would be the condition that I would place on the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-30, which is the Ryder Eco Area 1 12% slope variance to Chapter 825. And again, this variance is for the encroachment into the between the 13 and 15% slope on the site, as shown in the new materials presented tonight to the Board of Zoning Appeals, with one condition that the petitioner implement maximum erosion control measures that will stay in place during construction.
Correct, thank you.
A vote yes is a vote to approve the variance. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
No.
Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is approved 3-1.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Mr. Wood, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Ryder, for coming and speaking with us. Your petition is approved, and we wish you health and happiness on your property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item under new business is VAR-24-32, the Fagan's side yard setback variance to Chapter 804 concerning 3.76 plus or minus acre parcel in Perry Township, Section 20 at 1370 West That Road. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would kindly review that with us, we'd be grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. So the property is located in Perry Township, Section 20. The petitioner has applied for a side yard setback. So this variance request was triggered by an enforcement issue. In March of 2024, a complaint was submitted to the building department for construction without a permit. The property owner and the petitioner built the garage under the presumption of the log cabin rule, which is a state law that allows a person to construct structures without a building permit. However, it does an improvement location permit that's required under the Monroe County zoning ordinance is still applicable. So the applicant was notified via an enforcement letter that they must apply for an after-the-fact improvement location permit. And that is how we saw that there is technically a side yard setback encroachment for the structure. So the site originally contained a small shed that was located within the side yard setback. The petitioner demolished the shed and then built a 1.5-story, 20 by 40 detached garage that is approximately 12 feet from the side property boundary. So the petitioner is requesting this variance to allow the structure to remain in place with a side yard encroachment of 8 feet. So if variance is denied, the structure would either have to remove or relocate to a location that meets the side yard setback. If it's removed or relocated, an improvement location permit would still be required. So on your screen, on the left side is it's a pictometry image from 2022 where we can see kind of the small shed that's within the setback, and then pictometry image from 2024 on the right where we can see the new garage structure. So the property is zoned as State Residential 1, standard for this area. It's a residential use and is developed that way. There is some slope along the property, but in general, there are areas that are buildable under 25% that would be appropriate for a detached garage. This is our kind of as-built site plan. So using aerial imagery from 2024, this shows the footprint of the garage as it exists now after the new construction. On the screen is the petitioner's letter requesting that the structure remain in place. And here are just a few site photos of the structure. So we can see the tree line is somewhat accurate as a general representation of the side yard setback. So just a view looking north of the structure and along the side yard setback. Just another image of the structure that was built, and then looking south along with that side yard setback on the left side. So again, the standards of approval for design standards, you do have to find favorable findings for all 3 criteria. And we do not have favorable findings for criteria C, which is practical difficulties. So staff is recommending denial of the side yard setback variance to Chapter 833. Failure to meet the criteria C practical difficulties, and that they could relocate the structure to meet the side yard setback of 20 feet. Does the board have any questions?
When I looked at the picture of where the garage is located, it looked like there was a slope on the left-hand side, but that's where it would be moved to, right? If the setback were 20 feet instead of the 12 it now is. If you look at the photo of the existing garage, but you're also looking at the slope line. Yeah. I see that.
So there is some room before you would hit 25% slope.
Yeah. It's hard to quite discern from that picture where it begins and where.
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, that building permit, if it was relocated, would probably include excavation to make a level pad. But for buildable area, the maximum limit for slopes encroached in an area that's outside of the watershed is 25%. So they've got quite a bit of room.
Thank you.
Do you have questions, Mr. Loftman?
And this may not be a staff question, but I'll ask it and you can say, I don't know. And is this movable?
This is a permanent structure on a permanent foundation. It would require significant construction to relocate it to meet the setback.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daly, do you have any questions for staff? I have none. we can move to the petitioner or the petitioner's representative. If you would kindly come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And you'll have 15 minutes.
Got a few pictures to distribute. Would you like me to hand you
Sure,
those now?
please hand
Okay.
them out to us and to the staff. Do you already have these, Jackie? Okay.
Thanks.
Is it Fegan or Fagan?
Fagans,
Fagans.
what everyone says.
Well, that's what I thought it would be.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yes, we'll wait.
Okay,
So, Mr. Fagans, would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jason Fagans. I appreciate the opportunity to present my case for a variance this morning, and stated the facts pretty well. There was an existing shed sitting within 2 feet of the property line. I mistakenly thought that because I didn't need a building permit to build under the log cabin rule that I was good, and clearly that was not an accurate assumption. So I came back 12 feet from the property line. I thought that was a safe distance, and so it wasn't. I'm here seeking a variance because of that. It's important to note I removed a dilapidated shed. As I said, it was within 2 feet of the property line. The new building is a significant improvement and is set 10 feet back further from the property line than the shed that I replaced. The change not only improved the aesthetics and the functionality of the property, but increased the setback from the property line compared to the previous structure. Initially, I intended to build a larger building, but chose to keep the footprint as small as possible to avoid the steep slope in the middle of the property. An important note about the slope, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, is that the Clear Creek is, I don't know, 60 feet to the left of that photo, and there's a cliff in between. And the Eagle View neighborhood is to the right, and all the properties to the right, the water drains across my property, and it does drain down through that area that we're talking about and into the Clear Creek. So anyway, because it's a drainage area, because it's steep, I had that on one side, I had the property line on the other, and I have my driveway there. I want to minimize paving for runoff purposes. So I used my best judgment, made many concessions, and put it where I felt practical. If you look at the pictures I provided, so I didn't think about this till the last couple of days as I was preparing, and I realized in this picture, as well as another picture I took where the building's in the picture, I had my 5-foot daughter stand over to the left, so you can kind of get some kind of comparison. And then I further thought about it, and I put a level on the ground, and your phone has a nice thing that will show slope. And so that phone is, and that level is laying 5 foot from the edge of the building, and it's a 16% slope. I realize it's less than 25% when you're standing there. To me, it's not practical to think about being on 16% there. Getting closer to that cliff, which is really close. You can see the red area. It's actually just a cliff that drops down, I don't know, 20 feet or something. And then I have to deal with the water that's currently flowing through there. So Another important thing I think to consider, it's my understanding that there's proposed changes in the zoning ordinance on this property coming in the near future that would result in this property being zoned CD. It's also my understanding that the setback under CD would be 10 feet. So if that goes through, I would then be in compliance. It's not approved yet, I understand that, but to me, it reflects that the direction the Planning Commission is considering going. I understand variances are not easily granted. I believe my case has merit based on the slope considerations, the improved setback from the previous structure, and alignment with proposed future standards. I respectfully ask the board to consider these points and approve the variance, allowing me to maintain the building as it stands. To answer your question, can it be moved? It has a concrete foundation and a concrete floor, so it can be removed. It cannot be moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fagans. Do you have other members of your group who would like to speak?
I do not.
Okay, well, if you'll wait just 1 minute, I'm going to check with my colleagues here to see if you have questions for Mr. Fagans.
I do not.
I do not. And Mr. Daly, do you have questions for Mr. Fagans? I don't think he does, but if he does, he may say it at a later time.
Sure.
We're now going to turn to the public.
Okay.
And if anyone speaks against this request, then you'll have a 5-minute chance to rebut what
Okay,
they
perfect.
say.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Yes, sir. Please come up and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you. I sign the screen.
It's is there not a sheet of paper there? Oh, sorry about that. The paper just multiplies. Yes.
Okay.
Would you
Right.
kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you would give us your name, and then you have 3 minutes to speak in favor of this petition.
Thank you. My name is Levi Painter. I'm the property owner to the north of this property, 1479 West Eagle View Drive. And I'm in favor of the building staying where it is. I'm building on my lot as well, and so I've gone through a lot of what they went through, and now they're considering as well. A lot of what he said about the water and the land and things like that, I completely agree with. Similar situation where properties above or higher up, that water comes down through. Another big consideration from my perspective is that the shed was there, and not just the shed, but all the activity that went with it prior to their ownership and during the time they have owned it. All the ground around there has a lot going on with it. I'm new to the area, but the rock and the soil and the water and everything. And so to me, it makes a lot of sense to build where there were buildings, leave it there, don't encroach on the creek. Yes, you can build there as far as permitting and things like that are concerned, but there was not a building there where there was a building where it sits now. And so it's not just, oh, look at the slope and what's it going to do in terms of drainage and everything. It's, well, you're adding a big structure. You're adding a significant foundation for what their use is. So that's a lot to consider on unknowns under that ground. It's not just the slope itself. It's what else is happening there. I think a lot of property owners around here know that there's potential for a lot going on beneath the ground. Where they were, just observing that, it drained water properly, all the things were just right below it, right where we're talking about, not so much. So I think it's a slippery slope to go that direction, and looks good where it is.
Well,
That's all I had.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming tonight. Are there other members of the public? Please come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And then you'll have 3 minutes. Okay. Well, you're entitled to it. We won't shut you off. Would you, yes, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, sir?
John Hipskin.
Thank you, Mr.
I live
Hipskin.
about 3 blocks from the property that you're discussing tonight. I used to be with economic development out in Cass County, north of here, before I moved here. So I've gone through a lot of zoning meetings. I saw the sign in front of the yard at 1370 West That Road. Just out of curiosity, so I took a look. I wanted to see how you do things down in Monroe County compared to years ago at Cass County. I think it's a very nice structure, and I think the key thing is if you looked at the picture and you see where the slope begins, I think it would be very difficult had he would have done things, I'm sure, differently had he known that it didn't fall under that other rule when it was built. But if you look at it now, I think that 12-foot distance from the fence, I think the big slope on the left going down, I think it's in a perfect location, and it's not just a thrown together structure. It's a very professionally done, very nice structure on the property that adds value to the property. So I just think the location of it fits the footprint, the property that he built that on.
Well, thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Hipskind, and thank you for coming to Monroe County and finding out how we do things here. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand, and you'd have 3 minutes to speak in opposition. Since there's no opposition, there's no rebuttal necessary. So I come back to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further deliberation, discussion, and/or a motion.
My question is Mr. Fagan's right that if the proposed rezoning plan goes through, this issue goes poof because it'll be recategorized?
I did just double check. The draft zoning map does have them in a zoning district that would have a 10-foot side setback. I do want to remind the petitioner, I think we've spoken before, we will need either an after-the-fact building permit or an improvement location permit general if you decide to go with the log cabin rule, but we do not have that filed as of today. I just want to make that note made.
Any other questions?
No.
Well, you know, I just have a couple of comments regarding A, B, and C. And these are our standards for review. Since there was a building there before, I don't see that it's injurious to the environment or to the neighborhood. I think it increases the value of properties around it because you've made it look better. So in other words, I don't think it causes harm to your surrounding property neighbors, and your neighbors have testified to that fact. And I think it is the minimum standard that would have to be satisfied in order to go forward with this project. You've been parsimonious in that regard. And as a result, the approval, if we give it, would eliminate some practical difficulties on the property, and it would need to have what Jackie had requested, that
Improvement location
the
permit.
improvement location permit. So if anyone would, given those 3 things, if anyone would like to make a motion.
I will move that we approve variance 24-33, the Young Eco Area 1 acre contiguous 12% slope, 12% slope encroachment.
No, it's the Fagans.
Oh,
Sorry.
Fagans, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm reading
Yeah.
the wrong one, excuse me. I move that we approve variance 24-32, the Fagans side yard setback variance to chapter 804 due to
833.
833.
804.
Mine says 833. That's curious.
That's interesting. One says 804, one says 803.
No, 833.
833.
Is what it says on the
This is variance 2432 from chapter 833.
From chapter 833. Thank you very much for correcting me. Subject to the condition of obtaining an improvement location permit. Thanks for correcting me all over the place.
Is there a second to that motion?
second.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend or move this petition forward with an approval for VAR-24-32, which is a side yard setback variance to chapter 833 with an added condition that the petitioner must obtain an improvement location permit. A vote yes is a vote to approve with that one condition. Skip Daly. Is he not on there? Okay. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved, 3-0.
So thank you. Thank you for coming through our process.
Looks like a very nice building.
Yeah, it looks like a great
Looks
she
nice.
shed or a he shed. Thanks. Man cave. Okay, so we're moving on to case number VAR-24-33.
Finally. Yes, ready.
Yeah, Young Eco Area 1, and this is a 12% slope variance from Chapter 825 concerning 1.57 plus or minus acre parcel in Salt Creek Township, Section 33, at 2268 East Windfree Lane. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would kindly review that with us.
Yes, of course. Okay. So this is, as you said, a variance request from Chapter 825, specifically Area 1 for 12%, from the 12% slope restriction or land disturbance. So we are in Salt Creek Township in the Windfree Estates subdivision. So this is a request, let's see, from 824-4A1, which is maximum land slope upon which any land disturbance involved in construction of buildings, driveways, roads, parking lots, and utilities can occur shall be 12%. So the petitioner, I will put their letter on the screen. The petitioner is Barbara Young, represented by Noah Rogers of Rogers Remodeling. They have submitted a building permit for review for a 12 by 16 sunroom addition to the existing home. That is a 192 square foot addition. So upon review, the addition would be on slopes that exceed 12%. This is an area of the home that is currently developed with a deck, but enclosing that as an addition would be, further encroachment of those slopes. So I'm going to move forward. So on the screen, on the left side is the existing home footprint. On the right is the proposed. So there is an expansion of the deck or the encroachment into those 12%. So the sunroom addition would be mostly in an already disturbed area with about 10 to 15 square feet of new square footage being added for the sunroom addition. The plans show the removal of the deck and the pergola that's currently in place for that new addition. It would include foundation walls as opposed to the current deck posts. The petition site was platted in 1969 as Lot 33 within the Windfree Estates subdivision. The petition site is greatly constrained by slopes greater than 12%. The existing structure has, that existing elevated porch deck in this generally the same location. The proposed addition would meet all other design standards, including the required setbacks. Staff does not see the minor expansion of the structure resulting in increased erosion if proper erosion control measures are taken. So on your screen is the site conditions map with the percentage of slope displayed. This would be the existing elevated deck, and the proposed addition is in an area that's showing as anywhere between 15 and 20% slope. So run through a few photos from the staff site visit. We're looking at the existing home and elevated deck. So here, the pergola area of the elevated deck is where generally where the sunroom addition would be. Again, with with a bit of an expansion to the west. So here's part of that deck that would be replaced. These deck posts would be removed and replaced with foundation walls. As you can see, the site was disturbed when the home was originally built, so it is already steep slopes. Just the other side of the existing home. So the staff recommendation for VAR 2433, we recommend approval with conditions. The condition is that the petitioner shall install all erosion control measures and notify planning staff to conduct a site visit prior to the release of the associated building permit. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
You?
Not yet.
I don't have any questions. And is Skip still with us?
He is offline.
Okay. Well, if the petitioner's representative would like to address the Board of Zoning Appeals, please come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what is your name, sir?
Noah Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, you'll have 15 minutes, or your whole team together, if you have others here who would like to speak with us about your request for variance.
Hey, just one slight correction I wanted to specify. The foundation will be still on posts and sonotube footings. It will not be a continuous foundation wall, so
Okay.
it won't disturb as much of the soil, right? First off there, I just wanted to mention that I actually did another project 2 houses down from here that had a variance, and I believe it was 21. Similar design. It was an extension of the kitchen and kind of a sunroom. The slope was very similar in there, and it was approved. And then there was also a variance for their neighbor across the street to build a new home on, and it was also approved. So just wanted to mention that. And there's already a deck there, and there's not really many other places she could even move this that would be within the slope. Except for like maybe the opposite side, and then they have the holding tank for their septic on the opposite end of the house, which would be abutting their bedroom, which would not be an ideal place for the sunroom. So, but other than that, that was about all I had to say. So
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Do members of the BZA have questions?
I appreciate your telling us about the post, because when you look at that picture, you can't imagine how you could put a foundation with that kind of drop from one side to the other. So thanks that was going to be my question. How is that even possible?
Right.
But you've answered that.
Okay, great. So we'll now turn to the public, and we'll hear both people in favor or opposed to this proposal. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please come to the podium and sign in. Does anyone have a pen or
You
pencil?
lose your pen?
I have one.
Yeah.
I got two. Just leave it there.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
And what is your name, ma'am?
I'm Barbara Young.
Ms. Young, would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Well, you have 3 minutes to speak on this request.
I wanted to say thank you for hearing us. If we are approved, we look forward to the expansion of the living room into the existing deck, which will be an all-season room. And I believe it will enhance the value of my property as well as that of the neighborhood. And my neighbors have graciously helped me approve this. And I don't think I can add anything other than what Noah Rogers said. I'm glad that he clarified the posts and not the foundation.
Yes, well, thank you for coming to speak on his behalf and in behalf of this petition.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there other members of the community who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Are there members of the community who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Since there's no opposition, there will be no necessary time for a rebuttal, and I return to us for...
I would like to make a clarification. Barbara Young spoke, and are you one of the owners? As opposed to
Yes, you're right.
a community member?
Yes, that's true.
Just to make sure we have it.
Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you for keeping me straight now. You have a tough job to do tonight.
Day after day. Yeah. I think this is a very sensible proposal.
Yes.
And I'd be glad to hear any other comments people have.
This time I'm going to do it right. I move that we grant variance 24-33, the Young Eco Area 1, 1 acre contiguous, 12% slope, 12% slope encroachment, residential density maximum variance to Chapter 825 with the conditions that the petitioner shall install all erosion control measures and notify planning staff to conduct a site visit prior to the release of the associated building permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
There's been a motion and a second to approve VAR-24-33. This is the Eco 1 12% slope variance from Chapter 825. And it's stated that it will include the condition as stated in the staff report. 1, the petitioner shall install all erosion control measures and notify planning staff to conduct a site visit prior to the release of the associated building permit. A vote yes is a vote to approve with the stated condition. Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 3-0.
Enjoy that new room and that new, all the seasons that you'll enjoy in there. So congratulations. Okay. We move on now to items number 3 and 4, VAR-24-34A and B. And this concerns a Woodworth minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 and a Woodworth front yard setback variance to Chapter 804 concerning 1.91 plus or minus acre parcel in Benton Township, Section 29 at 2666 North Mount Gilead Road. Is it you again, Ann? Thank you.
All right. So as you said, we're in Benton South Township, Section 29. So the petitioner is requesting 2 variances, one from the minimum lot size and one from the front yard setback of Chapter 804. So the petition site is currently developed with technically 2 single-family residential structures and accessory structures. There is an existing manufactured home on the lot that has been essentially converted into a shed. There's an approved demolition permit on file for that very old manufactured home. So so the site really just contains 1 single-family structure. Petitioner submitted a residential building permit for an addition to the existing stick-built dwelling. So they're proposing on the screen, we are looking at a plot plan. In the white line, we can see an addition to the existing home. In order to add an addition to the existing stick-built dwelling or expand the footprint, the property and structure must become compliant with the zoning ordinance. So the petition site is zoned conservation residential, which does have a minimum lot size of 2.5 acres, and the property is currently 0.91 acres. So a minimum lot size variance would be the minimum needed for any development on the property. In order to expand the existing home is technically located within the front setback. So in order to expand the home, add the addition, the structure has to become compliant. So the existing dwelling is located approximately 20 feet from North Mount Gilead Road, a local road. Chapter 804 requires a minimum front yard setback of 25 feet from the property boundaries since there's no dedicated right-of-way. So we've done, on the screen are a few photos of the property. So here we can see the existing dwelling on the property. You can see the petition sign and kind of its fairly close proximity to North Mount Gilead Road. This is a dilapidated manufactured home structure that will be removed eventually. This is the side of the existing home that they will be doing an addition on. And here's towards the back. So when the building permit was submitted for review, staff did discover that there was a back porch addition that was constructed without permits between 2020 and 2022. Let me catch up here. So that's part of the structure that we're looking at here on the screen. The petitioner is pursuing an after-the-fact permit for this work. That front setback variance would be required to also permit this. It would be also considered an addition. So if both variances are denied, the petitioner would be required to remove this back porch addition and any part of the dwelling that encroaches into the front setback, so i.e. the front porch. The petitioner would not be able to complete the approval for the proposed new addition on the east side of the home. If the variances are approved, the planning department will be able to issue an improvement location permit for completing the proposed addition and the after-the-fact back porch that we're looking at. So this is just another view of the home and the porch built without a permit. So just to note, whenever we see a minimum lot size variance, we like to get an understanding of how many other parcels in a certain range. That varies. Just, are there other properties that also have this condition? So there are 11 other parcels within a quarter-mile buffer that are zoned agricultural rural reserve or CR. Both have a requirement of 2.5 acres. So there are 11 other parcels that would be required to have 2.5 and are under that. So not an incredibly unique situation for this parcel. There are other properties that do have the same burden in the same area. When we did that same kind of a comparison analysis for other homes along North Mount Gilead Road, that might be within the setback. So sometimes if we see an area where a lot of homes have been built really close, it might be easier, that it is a practical difficulty, might be easier for us to support that variance request. I found only 2 other parcels within that same quarter-mile buffer that have a structure that are located at less than 25 feet. So that is a little bit more of a unique situation, that this property, they did build closer, more of the neighbors are compliant with that front setback. I said that in a bit of a confusing manner, so let me know if I can clarify that for you. So the staff recommendation for variance 2434A, the minimum lot size, and VAR 2434B for the front yard setback, we do recommend approval of both variances, and it would be subject to the Monroe County Highway Department reports. Does the board have any questions?
Not high.
I don't have any.
I appreciate that you look in the neighborhood to see where the wind blows with compliance and not compliance. So that's relevant information when you look down the road and see your neighbors living the same or differently. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Right. Okay, so with that being said, if the petitioner is here and would like to speak to the Board of Zoning Appeals, please come to the podium and sign in, or you both can come. You both would sign in and both be sworn in. Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
Moral support.
Yeah. Would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Woodworth?
Yes.
Yeah, you have 15 minutes to address us.
So we bought this property maybe 15 years ago and kind of dreamed of turning it into a house that fits our family. So this addition will allow us to have 3 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs, and that's what we're looking for.
Do you have questions? Is that all you'd like to say?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty straightforward. And do you have questions for Mr. Woodworth?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll hear then. Do you have questions? I'm sorry. We'll hear from the public, and if there are any people opposed, then we'll have you back for a rebuttal.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Are members of the public here who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Are there members of the public who are opposed to this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand to be recognized. Seeing none, we come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
I move we approve variance 2434A and B, Woodworth minimum lot size variance and minimum front yard setback variance to chapter 804 on the grounds that it meets the standards of 812.6. That will not, it's appropriate, will not be injurious to the public health, safety, or welfare. The approval with the condition that Highway Department give approval, that it would is appropriate to the use and won't injure the value of the nearby properties in any manner, and value or otherwise, and it's the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties to the use of the property.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, and just as a clarification, the subject to Highway Department reports, is that okay if that's just part of the reasoning, or do you want that to be a condition?
Okay,
I don't think there were any conditions stated in the staff
okay,
report.
I'm just reading the caption
Yes,
here
okay,
and,
all right.
and not interpreting it properly. So that's
Okay.
a part of my reasoning, but it's not a condition because
Okay.
it's automatically a condition, I believe, of the ordinances.
Yes, okay, so I will go ahead and repeat the motion. So this is on VAR-24-34A and VAR-24-34B, the minimum lot size and front yard setback variances to chapter 804, and the recommendation or the move It's been motioned to approve both variances. A vote yes is a vote to approve both variances based on the findings. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes?
Motion is approved 3-0.
Congratulations, after
Yes.
15 years, a bathroom on the second floor. That's going to be heaven.
Yes, that will.
Yes, amazing. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Enjoy. Okay, we're moving on to the next petition, and this is two variances, I believe. Variance 24-35A and B concerning a Harris minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 and a lot width variance to Chapter 804 concerning 2.94 plus or minus acre parcels in Benton Township, Section 9 and 10 at 6164 North Shuffle Creek Road. And Mr. Smith, if you would kindly review this with us.
Absolutely. So again, the requests here are minimum lot size, minimum lot width from Chapter 804. So the purpose is to prepare the property to be ready for construction for a new single-family residence on a 0.94 acre parcel. Chapter 804 calls for a minimum lot size of 1 acre in the estate residential zone and a minimum of 100 feet in width for the property. The petitioner wishes only to sell the property, not develop the property, pending the approval of these variance requests. So these are the location and site conditions maps. You can see it's relatively flat towards the front of the property, so towards Shuffle Creek Road before it drops off into a ravine further down towards the rear part of the property. The petitioner did get a survey conducted by Smith Design Group, and that is what is currently showed up on the screen. And then I've got a zoomed in version here where the petitioner is requesting the 75-foot minimum lot width here. So we can see at its greatest extent, it is up to about 88 feet in width before most of the property begins to decrease to that 75-foot width. So that is what the request is for the minimum lot width. These are just some site photos of the property itself. Note that the property itself is currently vacant, so the structure that you see in the photos is from an adjoining neighbor. So Mr. Harris, he is the petitioner. This is his letter. It's also in the staff packet. I'm happy to come back to this slide if the Board of Zoning Appeals members would like. And then I would like to at least introduce into the evidence, we did receive a letter of opposition from a neighbor on Shuffle Creek Road, and I have copies for the BZA members that I will hand out to you. And then additionally, I did receive another letter at this meeting that I will also hand to you. However, this person will be speaking at the meeting, so I do not have this letter in the PowerPoint itself, so I will do this now.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Oh, do you want me to? Sure, I can send these down.
And since this was just introduced, I will give the members some time to read through those.
Which is the one that doesn't have somebody here? The handwritten?
The one that is on the screen is the one where somebody is not here presently, and then the other one is for someone who is here. And then please let me know when you'd like me to continue.
Okay,
Go right ahead.
you can go
Yes.
ahead. Thank
Are
you.
you okay? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So this does lead us into the staff recommendation for this petition. So staff does recommend approval of both variances, citing that practical difficulties have been demonstrated. This lot does not meet the minimum lot width or size of the ER zone, so therefore construction is not possible without seeking a rezone or a lot line shift with an adjacent neighbor. This does also include the fact that any future development of the lot will need to prove that a septic system is possible to be installed on the property, and that is a prerequisite before any building permit can be approved. So that is part of the staff recommendation.
Okay. Do you have any questions for staff? Okay. Well, then the petitioner, if you're together, the petitioner's representative, please come to the podium and sign in. And would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And your name, sir?
My name is Adam Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. You have 15 minutes.
So, basically, when we took ownership of this structure or of this these two parcels, this property, there were already residential. There was a residential structure on the property. There was a mobile home. There was a large barn, and a garage. So to us, it seems reasonable. Well, maybe also say there's a driveway, there's a mailbox with the address. To us, it seems reasonable that the county would let us continue using the property as it's been used in the past. The structures have only been gone probably less than a year or two at most. So I also couldn't read the letter from one of the, I assume what is a neighboring property owner, just handwriting and distance. I also, the second letter that was mentioned, that was not put on the screen, so I really don't know what I'm speaking to when it comes to that.
Well,
I can give him. Wait, can I give him mine?
Oh, sure, you can give
Here,
him.
I'll give you mine because I've read them and we can
Yes,
share.
but
There you go.
it's possible. Well, can you read those? Could we suspend the time for a minute? And then if you take a minute to read it,
Okay,
then you
thank
can.
Or two.
Yes.
Text services, if you could pause the timer at 13 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay, so you have a remaining 13 minutes.
Sure, I'm sure I won't take that long. So again, yeah, our main goal is just to allow the property to be used as it's been used in the past. So no real change in property use. I've spoke to both of these residents when we first took possession of the property. Both were very appreciative that we cleaned up the mess and the unsafe conditions that were there. The first letter that was posted, she says there's no reason to grant the variance, but she doesn't really give any reason.
I don't know what you mean by the first letter.
Oh, I'm sorry, the handwritten letter. Says she sees no reason to grant the variance, but she doesn't really give any good reason not to. And as far as increased traffic and congestion, again, we're just replacing a home that was there already, so I don't see how that would add to traffic or congestion. I can't speak to some of these. The property is not suitable for planned use. I don't know how it could, if our planned use is the same use that, the residential structure in there, I believe GIS first mentions it in 1968. So I don't see how that would be a change of use from how it's currently being used. The second letter, the typed letter, Connie's very sweet. I'm surprised that she sent this letter, but she was very appreciative that we cleaned it up and that we got rid of those unsafe conditions. As I understand it, one of the variances that we're applying for, I'm told, is within 10% of the requirement and that we may not actually need a variance for it. I just wanted to go ahead and apply for that in case that interpretation changed later. I'm not sure her story about her sons wanting to build a home in a huge field. I don't really know what that pertains to this property. So I can't really speak to that either. So I don't really have anything else to add. I'm happy to answer questions.
You're getting the property ready to be sold?
Yes, we had the property. So I bought the property. I bought a lien on these two parcels at a tax sale. So we bought it with the intentions of cleaning up, improving the property by cleaning it up and reselling it. We did have, we accepted an offer to purchase it. That was based on him getting a septic permit, and because of, I wouldn't say it's because of the issue of needing this variance, but there was basically the health department's telling me that there's no reason we could not have a septic permit, and I can't cite the statute that changed, I'm sorry. But so we can have a septic permit, which we're working on applying for now. So we just wanted to go ahead and get these variances just so they wouldn't be an issue in the future. And I'm not, yes, our intentional or our original intention was to sell the property. Of course, we could decide to build on it as well. So I don't want to be locked into having to sell it. So
understand.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Loftman?
Yeah,
Sir. Sir. Mr. Harris? Yeah.
This is really more for staff probably, but I'm looking at the site condition map that has the contours. Could we bring that up? Yeah. There's a diagonal line overlay on this going north-south. Is this two lots?
Yes, two parcels.
Two parcels that we're looking at. I just want to make sure
Yeah, it's the reason that line is there is because that's a section line, so that's why. It's the same lot of record. It's just two parcels.
Right. Yeah, and the section line.
Yeah.
You gotta makes describing it tricky. And also, okay. In terms of the substance, this is a recurrent problem in Monroe County to have non-compliant lots with current zoning, and we don't my rule of thumb is that somebody is allowed to continue using it, but you take a derelict property and turn it into a beneficial property, and there's, I understand saying it's wonderful when there's nothing there. Most people would rather have nobody in their view, but I don't think that's a sufficient reason to stand in the way of allowing this to be restored to effective residential use. So I'm supportive.
Okay, so we'll hear now from the public. Yes. And
Myself,
yes.
and I do need to listen to the public.
Thank you,
before
Mr.
I make up
Harris.
my mind.
Are there members of the public who are in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Are there members of the public who are opposed to this petition? Please come to the podium and sign in.
Signed in when I first arrived, so I will sign in.
Well, if you would just put an arrow. Yeah,
Absolutely.
down to the line to show where you're.
Absolutely, thank you.
And if you would, after you're done with that, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And what is your name?
My name is Connie McCoy.
Thank you,
and
Ms.
you
McCoy.
have
Yes, we do.
the copy of my letter. My name is Connie McCoy, and I have been, for 55 years, have been the landowner to the immediate south of the property in question, and I'm here to speak against it, against granting the variance. I admit, as Mr. Harris indicated, I was very pleased when he came to my door and said he had bought this land with plans to clear it. To say it was unsightly is an understatement. It was decrepit. No one had lived on the property for about 12 years. It was falling in. It was in very bad shape. But with that said, we are here tonight for the size of the property does not meet the requirements for a house to be built and requires a variance to sell as a building site. Mr. Harris indicates there are already connections for gas, electric, and water. However, there is no septic on the property, and a variance will be required for that as well. If the building variance is approved, a second variance will be requested for the septic. And is the septic an automatic approval if a variance is granted here tonight? Will there be limitations on the size of the house that can be built? The location that he is proposing is not the same location as the previous build or mobile home. As stated in the information packet, the land does not meet the minimum lot width nor minimum 1 acre for use as a building site. I realize occasionally there are cases to approve a variance. However, we know that the requirements that Monroe County put in place several years ago, after considerable thought and much public input, were in part to protect current landowners from seeing adjoining properties become, in effect, what was just demolished. Once Mr. Harris sells the land, he has no control over what is built, the upkeep, and any septic issues. It could well revert to what it was before. And I'm including this. He questioned why I gave this anecdotal situation, but I'm speaking to what Monroe County zoning and what is in place, the rules that are followed or were meant to be followed. And that speaks to one of my sons wanted to build a home in a huge field equal to many, many football fields. The closest neighbors were the in-laws from whom he was buying the land. And he was building on one end of this huge field, his brother-in-law on the other. But because of the Monroe County zoning and property requirements, they had to buy additional property in order for these young men to buy property to build. And here we're talking about several acres in a big field in a wooded land area, and yet they were denied the opportunity to build in that area because they did not meet the specific land requirement. So that's why that is there. It's just an anecdotal situation to where we followed the parameters, the rule, the plan that was in place. So tonight we are talking about Mr. Harris's recommendation that a house be built on a 75-foot wide swath. And honestly, I don't want that. The house could be built as close as 15 feet to the adjoining property lines. And the north side of my house is, and I had put 50 yards just as a placeholder, thinking I would get that measured. My son indicates it's probably less than the length of this room. It's probably more 30, 35. So my house is about 35 feet on the other side of that property line. So that house could be built within 50 yards, 35 yards of my house. So I'm sorry, maybe Mr. Harris wasn't aware of the Monroe County zoning requirements and building codes, and maybe unaware that there was no septic on that property prior to purchasing. Again, I want to say I do appreciate the improvement that is obviously there due to the demolition of an awful falling in mobile home garage, and actually the barn that was torn down I played in when I was a child. My father actually owned the property originally. So I'm sorry, but I do want to speak against.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy. Thank you very much. And you, sir, are you here to speak in opposition? Or, yes, if you would kindly sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And I forgot to keep track of the time. I'm sorry. You'll have 3 minutes. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, could you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And what is your name?
Tyler McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. You'll have 3 minutes.
It's fine. It won't take 3 minutes.
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I do appreciate the rule of law and the ability to argue for and against points. That's the part of our system, and that's the great thing about our country. Mr. Harris did do everybody a favor that lives within and around that street, so it's nothing against you, sir. It's absolutely nothing against. He seems like a great man with great intent. A concern, though, that I did realize after looking at Exhibit 2, if you'll see the eastern end of that property where the house is intended to be built is greater than 13% slope as well, and I don't know if that's been considered within the not argument, but the variance. And since Mr. Harris does not intend to build a house there, I'm concerned because we have heard from reputable builders like Mr. Wood, who I think would act in great interests and intent in preserving and maintaining integrity of the land and watershed beyond that property. Since Mr. Harris does not intend to build a house, nor do I feel that somebody with the intent to build a house would use a person like Mr. Wood to build, given the parameters and the circumference of the lot. I don't feel like it's something that should be allowed. And again, like my mother said, my sibling was ruled to pay for additional space adjacent to his lot due to the rule of law and the regulations set forth. And, we do appreciate the rule and, also appreciate the ability to have these types of variances because, we could also be on the other end of this as well, too. And so it's not without appreciation for that. But, with the consideration of the lack of understanding of who's going to be building, the slope plus the width, I think in combination sets a higher precedent as opposed to one or the other. I think we've heard some from each side, slope variance and also a setback variance, but the slope and setback variance in conjunction with one another, I think provide a different aspect to that may not have been realized. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, Mr. Harris, you have a 5-minute rebuttal period.
I guess, can I ask the board a question? It mentions a second variance for the septic. I'm not aware that I would have to get a variance for the septic.
Well, you don't even have a building permit. You're
No.
just
Right.
wanting to clear something up in
Right.
order to try to sell it, so.
Okay.
But whoever buys it would, if they wanted to build a home on it, they would have to meet all the other variances and get a septic
Right.
permit.
Well, I guess my question is, what other variances would they require?
Well, it depends on what they want to do, and we have
Right,
no idea
right.
what that is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, on the limitations of the size, the health department would set the limit, and they've said 3-bedroom house was what I
Okay.
would be approved for. So there's a limit for that. Again, I can't really speak to this instance a few years ago about someone else building a home. It seems like since that variance was denied, that all variances should be denied. I can't really argue. I mean, other than I'm not aware of that situation and what bearing that situation has on this variance.
It really doesn't. It's an experience.
But it's also to remind us, the way I take it, as sitting here on the board, is that people are asking for consistency in our rulings. And
I understand. I'm sure there's been many votes on variances that have gone both directions
Yes.
in those last few years.
Yes.
And as far as being against the variance just to prevent anybody from building on it, I don't think that's good grounds. If they would like to ensure that nobody builds on it, they could have purchased the property when it was for sale.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'm just having trouble understanding. I feel like I'm in an existentialist dilemma because, there's no home being proposed. This is like a theoretical request for variance for some unknown future. I feel like I'm in a never land, and I don't quite know how to get out of it because there is a petition before us and we're hearing it, but we have no idea what the future will hold. There's a potential sale. But
it fell through. So yeah.
But I mean, a potential future sale, because you state that you intend.
Or possibly I might build on it as well.
Or possibly you might build on it, so.
But I also want to speak to the fact that, the lot not being big enough. So if it's not large enough for a small home, I'm not sure how a mobile home, a garage, and a large barn all fit on the property.
Well, it's because those things were built before we got our act together and tried to protect.
I'm just making the point that physically a home would fit.
Yeah. Well, right now it doesn't. And that's why you're here. So, right now it doesn't. So, I guess it's up to, do you have something to ask?
I was going to ask the staff, we don't have to worry about the slope requirement because until somebody says this is the site I want to build on, there's no reason to be concerned that it violates the slope requirement. Same with the septic permit. They cannot build without a septic permit, so that will happen before the building permit is granted. So that is,
Or it may not happen.
or it may not, if
there
there
may
is
not
no
be
space on
or
it.
soil, or, there may not be.
Yeah, we've had situations where the soil is wrong for it. So, but that's outside of our purview too. That's another area that looks at septic, not us. So we don't have to worry about slope or septic in this situation. And we know this site will never qualify to be big enough for what the rule would have been. The fact that there was a house there previously, that's pretty compelling, that it was used in that manner in the past. So anybody who would have bought it would have thought, naturally, I'll be able to reside.
Out of record, it has a mailbox. It has a driveway. The address is on the mail.
It's a natural conclusion.
The county has billed taxes on the structures up until less than 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So property taxes have been paid on these structures for that long.
And as all of us who have had neighbors build closer than we wish or build things we aren't super happy with, all of us have been in that boat at some point or the other. It's the way property ownership kind of works in some ways.
Well, could I ask how it's going to be affected by the CDO?
Yes.
Ooh,
So
good question.
I want to make sure, just for the petitioner's sake, are you closing the comment period and the rebuttal before we move to staff questions, or is it still?
Okay, and I have not, yes, so the comment period is closed, and we'll hear from staff.
All right.
This is a question.
Okay, so I want to just clarify a few items that have been brought up. So the petition requests are for minimum lot size and minimum lot width. The minimum lot size of this petition site is 0.94 acres. They're technically within a 10% deviation, which if that was their only issue, we would not have seen this petition at all.
I see.
They're also within the lot width requirement is 100 feet, and they are meeting 88 feet at the widest portion.
Okay.
So there's they barely missed the 12 or the 10% mark.
I see.
But they do have kind of a skinnier portion as it goes back. I think that goes down to, was it 75 feet? Yes. So 75 feet minimum. So if you were to approve tonight's variance, I just want to verify for the public, that's really to allow them to build within the buildable area on the screen, with that 75-foot allowance for lot width. They would still have to meet setbacks. They would still have to be within buildable area, or they're right back before you for another variance request. And then as far as the septic system review goes, that is under the septic or the health department's purview. There has been some changes at the state level that limits their ability to require a certain minimum lot size. I don't know if that's helpful for what you've heard tonight, but there was previously a requirement of a 1 acre lot size for a septic. I don't believe they're able to, the state has limited their authority to regulate based on lot size alone.
So what is the state, what is the minimum lot size, or is there none for septic?
I don't believe there is a lot size requirement for septic anymore, but Mr. Schilling would be best to answer that as well.
Yeah, that is no longer the case.
So there isn't technically a minimum lot size for a septic based on the state regulations. However, it's self-limiting. So if you can't fit a septic site on the property, you cannot get a building permit. So in order to apply for a residential building permit for a new construction of a home, we require a certified plot plan showing the house location. If they didn't get the variance tonight, then they would not be able to build anything on this property because they don't meet the lot width. But if you were to grant the variance for the lot width and they're asking for a variance for the lot size, they would be able to proceed. Under the county development ordinance, this is proposed to be rezoned to residential 1. The lot size under that is a 1 acre. However, there's a allowance that if all other development standards are met, no variance is required. This is similar to our current zoning district suburban residential. And the lot width at building line is currently drafted as 50 feet, though I think we are going to be taking a look at those standards again. So it was going to be less than 100 feet.
Wow.
So technically, is as drafted currently, they wouldn't require a variance if they could meet setbacks.
On the one that, yeah, this one, there is some, on the southeast corner here, there's some cutoff letters. Is this the full extent of the buildable area, or is there more buildable area that we don't see? Okay, that's the larger one, and that extends
To the slope.
And why does it end at the southeast there? Is that slope?
Yep, that's correct. So if you look at the site conditions map, you'll see the colors. They start transitioning into the more red colors. So that's where the slope exists. So what I believe Smith Design Group has shown here is they're depicting that once you get roughly to where that section line is, that's where the slope becomes too excessive. So they have left that part blank, or in other words, it's unbuildable.
And excessive here means 25% now?
That's correct.
Now, if you go back to the blow up of this, I have a, yeah. So there's a X line going out on the south side of the property. What is that?
I believe it's a fence. Yeah, they note it as being a fence, an existing fence.
Okay. Now, is there a 15-foot setback for construction?
Yep, so what they have delineated in the gray part area, that is buildable area, so meaning it meets slope and it meets the setbacks for the zone.
Right, so they could build something as big as this buildable area, but no bigger.
Correct.
So that's, Mr. Harris is raising his hand with a concern.
So for clarification, the gray buildable area, that's in that area a home can go if it meets the standards, however large it would be. That would be dependent on whoever's proposing it. But it doesn't include a septic because there's no septic there. There's no septic being proposed at the moment.
Right, and it could be that that the septic would have to go on part of this buildable area.
Correct.
For them to be able to proceed with building.
Yep.
So it may not be much consolation, but at least we know that the building couldn't be any bigger than that. We know the maximum size the building would be, and that would, so we do know something. We don't know a lot, and we also know that they would have to probably get if it's appropriate for a septic, they'd have to fit that in this lot too. That's not a variance, that's a health department.
You have to come to the microphone, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So are there varying sizes of septics?
Yes. Yes, and there are different types of septics, and there are different soils depending upon the type of the septic. And then slopes are involved, and it gets kind of complicated, but that's the health department's purview. And the state legislature, we've been informed tonight, has been, no pun intended, been mucking around in it.
So,
You
but
intended that pun.
they're backing off from, did I understand her to say, they are backing off from requirements rather than making them more
That's right,
stringent?
they're mucking around with it.
Okay. A friend of mine was interested in this property, and he did contact the health department, and they came out and did a soil sample. But they informed him that because the lot was only at that point where the logical place to place the septic was only 70 feet wide, he was 30 feet short of having adequate area to place a septic. So
Used to have finger systems, and then the state legislature said Presby system on a 1 acre lot, and now they're saying doesn't need to be 1 acre. So things are quickly moving in that. Things are in
they're
flux.
fluid, very fluid.
They're very fluid.
You might want to talk with your neighbor again
Yeah.
about coming out if this is granted. And let me say, we really appreciate neighbors who are concerned and looking out for the neighborhood and your interests.
Yes, and of course, and Adam's letter to us indicated that this was potentially for a building site. Actually, I even hated to come tonight, but he's a nice guy, and I really appreciate the way that has been improved. But
Yes.
but I have no desire to have a 40 feet. Who knows what might be built.
Yes, well, we would like everyone's participation in the CDO process. There's going to be a public hearing on September 24th, and the public so far has not been very engaged, and big decisions are going to be made about your property. So we'd like you to come to those meetings. It'll be here in this room on September 24th, and it's getting toward the end, so it's getting late. So with that being said, I turn back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
I'm going to move that we approve variance 24-35A and variance 24-35B, the Harris minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 and the Harris minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804. And right now we have no conditions on that because those would present itself if someone buys the property and says, here's, I'm going to build, and now all these requirements people are concerned about, slope and septic, will come into play at that point. So as of now, the property cannot, are 3 conditions here. It's not going to be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, particularly since there was a house there at one time. It's not going to adverse the use and value. I know you're concerned about closeness, but there was a house there before, and there are practical difficulties because the lot size is confined. It's the lot size. So I'm going to recommend approval of those.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move for approval for VAR-24-35A and VAR-24-35B, which is the minimum lot size and lot width variance to Chapter 804. A vote yes is a vote to approve both variances. Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Margaret Clements?
Yes?
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved 3-0.
So perhaps your friend would like to look at that again if it comes up for. Okay, great. Okay. Well, thank you. We wish you happiness and good neighborliness and a beautiful future. Thank you. Okay.
And glad the property is looking better.
Yeah.
Heard that loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on to the last case of the evening, and I'm sorry, sir, that you've had to wait. But this is concerning variance -24-36, and this is Brummett Residential Storage Structure variance to Chapter 804. And 802, yeah, I just was maybe a little dyslexic, you know. Okay. 802 concerning 4.19 plus or minus acre parcel in Washington Township, Section 10 at 1722 East Melcurry Road. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would kindly review this with us.
Yes, absolutely. So on the screen, we do have a location map showing the general location of the petition site that we're looking at. So Margaret, as you said, it's located in Bloomington Township, Section 10. So a quick pictometry photo of the property. It is platted. It is lot number 4 in a 4-lot minor subdivision called Brummett Melcurry Minor Subdivision. The property is undeveloped and 4.19 acres. So the petitioner is requesting one design standard variance from the residential storage structure requirement of Chapter 802. So they are requesting to construct a 3,000 square foot residential storage structure on the site. I'm gonna skip around here a little bit. So Chapter 802-5D1 states that a structure to be used for private excuse me, it's the end of the night. A residential storage structure is defined as a structure to be used for private non-commercial storage by the property owner, that this does not require the presence of a principal use on the same lot, and that the structure shall not exceed 1,750 square feet in the Ag RR, FR, or CR zoning districts, and 875 square feet in all other districts. So this property is zoned agricultural rural reserve. So without the presence of a primary use, like say a home, it's limited to 1,750 square feet. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. So they're requesting a 40 by 75 residential storage structure. That's 3,000 square feet. So this proposed structure exceeds the size restriction by 1,250 square feet. So the purpose of the residential storage structure use is to allow for a storage building prior to building a principal use on the property. And the ordinance limits the size of the storage structure so that the land can be utilized for storage purposes as an accessory to a principal use. So it could be designed as, say, a detached garage or a pole barn. And then once built out, it looks like an accessory structure. This avoids a situation where the property ends up being used only for storage. So the petitioner states in their letter to the BZA that they intend to build a single-family residential structure in the future. The petitioner has applied for the structure under a residential accessory structure permit. So if the design standard variance is approved, the petitioner could continue on with the residential accessory structure permit application, and it would have to comply with other building and zoning codes like setbacks, etc. If the design standard variance is denied, the petitioner would not be able to construct a residential storage structure beyond that 1,750 square feet, or they would have to propose another principal use on the lot, and then they could avoid that square footage restriction. So just another photo of lot 4 that the petitioner is looking at. And that is a really quick summary. It's fairly simple. So staff does recommend denial of VAR 24-36 based on the findings number C, practical difficulties, and that they have not been demonstrated due to the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Crecelius.
Thank you.
Do you have questions for staff?
Yeah. If the petitioner were to say that they wanted to apply for a residential construction permit, would they need they would need a variance? And as the question of order of operations, if they requested to build a residence there, and part of that was to build this, they're allowed.
A variance would not be required if there was an approved building permit submitted. We would get into an enforcement issue if that building permit lapsed for the home and there was only that accessory structure that was larger. So it would turn into an enforcement issue if that home was never built.
Right, and how long how long would that last?
The permit lasts for 1 year. It can be extended for 1 more year, and then at 2 years, it requires a full review.
So if they were willing to take their chances, they could say, yeah, we want to build it, and then if they start construction on the home within, excuse me, if they start construction of the home within 2 years, then they've met that, or they had to complete it.
Yes, the building permit application, they would need to have an approved septic. They would need to have a certified plot plan, all their construction plans.
Right.
So
Right.
a lot more information.
Right. And that would be another way they could go. But if they build it, and if they build the barn and then don't get everything else done, or the storage unit, the storage building, then they're at risk of being non-compliant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had those clear in my mind.
And the issue seems to be they want to have a structure of 3,000 square feet where 1,750 is the number for an accessory, for the residential storage unit size. Without the presence of the home. Okay.
Mr. Brummett, thank you for bearing with us. If you would kindly sign in. Okay, if you just draw an arrow to the bottom line and then raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir.
God bless you people. I don't know how you do it.
Sorry.
Okay, I've resided at 2725 Mill Curry Road for over 30 years. I consider myself to be a good steward of the property. I don't think we ever own property. We're just continue to improve it and pass it on to whoever's next. At any rate, 10 or 12 years ago, I bought 15 acres down the road, and every year we've made small improvements to it, and we've eventually subdivided it. I have septic permits for all the lots. I have water, I have utilities in the process of going into the lots. The lots were for sale, and I took them off the market. I want to build a home there, but I've got to be out of the shop. What I'm proposing building, and to clarify, it's 40 by 80. The numbers on the paper are the setbacks from the property lines, 40 and 75. So the building is 40 by 80. It's 3,200 square feet. It's exactly like the building I have at 2725 Mill Curry. I need to move everything out of there into this other building. I've got a builder lined up. I quite frankly don't understand this 1,750 square foot rule, and I've been told that what I should have done is applied for both building permits at the same time and we wouldn't be here. And simply built the barn first before the house. So I take good care of my property. I build things nice. If you look at this property, you'll see that it's all well taken care of. I just need to build a storage building, and then I'm going to build a house.
Okay. Do you have questions?
The 3,000 square feet, 3,200 square feet that it is, that's very needed for what you have to move over there. The 1,750 just won't do it.
I have 3,200 square feet right now that is full. And I need to move that down the road. And I need to do it by October. Yeah, like I said, I just don't understand the 1750 rule. I was blown away when I figured it out. I come over to see Ann to figure out what my required setbacks were, and then discovered this, and I'm like, wow.
Sir, do you intend to build a home there?
Yes.
Okay,
And I
it's
own
just,
all the other lots there.
it's just a timing issue?
It's a timing issue.
Okay, Mr. Loftman, do you have questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious. It seems pertinent here. Why is it you need to get out of the other building?
Fortunately, it's a divorce, and I need to be out of the other building by October 5th.
Oh, we're so sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so,
So he's got a lot going on. He's got a lot of plates in the air.
okay, that's what didn't make sense, and now we understand.
Oh, are there members of the public? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Loftman, did you have more?
I have one question for staff before. The 1750, is that going to be changed in any of the county rules, or has that been around forever and ever? What's the provenance of 1750? Do we know?
So the 1,750 square foot limitation was added to the ordinance, I believe in 2015 or 2016, after we received a lot of requests for people to place storage structures ahead of residential or primary structures on the property. Why we limited it is because there is no primary use of the property, so we didn't want it to be a place where people just store, like use it as convenience storage for themselves.
They wanted to preserve land for residential purposes.
Yes, exactly. We want to discourage commercial renting out of storage spaces, and so we felt that this limitation was in kind with encouraging people to just go ahead and, live on the property, and then they would have, that restriction would essentially be gone. Or they can build ahead of living on the property, and they're limited to that 1750. So we have not changed that in the draft.
But if I built the home first, then there would be no limitations on the size of the building.
That's right. So he's just in a catch-22, and if we're able to, we can resolve it. But I do want to hear from the public. Okay, are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor? Or well, sometimes they're online. I know it seems ridiculous, but we have to go through this. Are there members of the public who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this petition? Please raise your virtual hand if you're online or calling in. There's nobody. So I'm inclined to, I normally would say, we preserve land for residential purposes. This guy's in a terrible catch-22. His intentions are to live on the land, and he just needs to take care of business, and I think we should try to help him out. I think he's got practical difficulties, and I don't think it's really our business to, in this case, to get in his way. And I don't know how you ladies and gentlemen feel.
The size of this entire tract is how large?
15 acres.
15 acres.
Subdivided into 4 lots. This is the largest lot. It is a little over 4 acres. This lot was listed at 199,000. These are going to be developed into very nice home sites. They're very nice.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to.
Right. You just need this to get through this hurdle.
Yeah.
So, but this is the lot you're going to build your house on as well, in addition to this garage or storage unit.
And I built the house first, then I could have put 10,000 square foot up, I think.
If it met the setback requirements.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Well, I've got a lot of setback area.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
true.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Well, I think my problem is I don't. It would be pretty simple to apply for a building permit. If the building permit's granted, as I understand, he could then build a 3,000 square foot, and he'd have 2 years to do it. If my ability to see the future is if he came back and after 2 years and had got an extension, and then he had to come back with another 2 years, it would probably be granted, and that's giving him 4 years to.
Yeah, but he's probably not in a state of heart or mind to go about that process of designing a house at this moment. you know,
He doesn't have to design the house at this moment. He just
get
needs
the building permit.
To get the, well, I guess he does.
His greatest pressure is having the storage
Is it-
unit emptied by October. That's
Right, that's
the pressure we can all understand.
That's the practical difficulty.
That's a very
is
practical difficulty.
overwhelming his ability to do what he thought he could do when he was buying this property.
Prior to finding out about this 1750 rule, I'd already engaged a contractor. I've got trusses built. I've already secured the wastewater permit. Septic permits are already there. I'm not worried about that right now.
Things have changed.
But the
Yeah.
road is in, or the driveway's in, the building site's in.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm comfortable.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can move to approve variance 24-36, the Brummett Residential Storage Structure Size Variance to Chapter 802, based on the three requirements of 812.6 standards for design standards variance approval.
Yeah, I just think it doesn't harm anybody. It helps him out. There are practical difficulties. Let's get on with it.
There's no other residents can see this.
That's
This is
right.
a secluded area. It
And it-
backs up to 200 acres. It's on the west side, it's farm ground of a couple hundred acres. That's the reason this is so desirable.
Yeah,
And quite honestly, I'm gonna try not to sell them because I have 3 grandchildren
oh, that would be beautiful.
and I have 3 lots left.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
We'll see.
We want that for you.
I believe there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-36, which is the residential storage structure size variance to Chapter 802. A vote yes is a vote to approve the variance. Margaret Clements?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Motion is approved 3-0.
We wish you happiness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
a little less stress.
Yeah, a lot less.
I'll deal with it. I'll just one more hurdle.
Yeah.
Yes, one more hurdle.
One more.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Brummett.
thank you.
Now, there wasn't the number, you said 40 by 75. That wasn't a limited.
Mr. Brummett, since the meeting's not yet adjourned, we'll talk to you out in the hallway if that's okay, immediately after.
Okay.
Just a second.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Is there a
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
Let's adjourn.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you all.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.